Hi, and welcome to Sealclops Book Reviews. Today I'm going to be talking about Suzanne Collins' prequel novel, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. If you're like me and you like the Hunger Games novels, then you would like this book. It's the prequel novel for the Hunger Games trilogy written by Suzanne Collins. It's called The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and it has written 65 years before the first Hunger Games book takes place in Panem. The genre for this series is young adult, dystopia, fantasy, science fiction, romance, and adventure, so it has a bit of everything in there. It's average to longer side for a book. It's bigger than her other 3 books in the trilogy, and it was written quite a few years after them as well. I decided that I must read it before the movie adaptation comes out later this year. I've been meaning to read it for years, since I read the first trilogy for the first time. But if you're like me and you're a bit of a book nerd, bookworm, I was waiting for the format size to come down, so for it to be changed from the trade size into a B format. Unfortunately, that never seemed to happen down here in Australia. Otherwise, my partner and I, we also have the trilogy in a hardcover version, but then again, when you buy this hardcover by itself, it is slightly bigger still, so it doesn't quite match. So, because of this, I actually opted to read the ebook on my phone. I'm one of those people, I read off my phone. I do have a Kindle, I just prefer to read off my phone because then I don't have to carry multiple things around with me as I'm reading a lot and all the time. So, how does the book compare with other books in the genre? So, as a dystopian fantasy book, this prequel to the Hunger Games draws you into the story just like the original trilogy. It has adventure, science fiction components, and some romance to draw young adults and adults in alike. There are elements of darker themes taking place with many deaths throughout the book. The capital is seen to be gaining control and power, more than it already has as you progress through the story, with an overwhelming feel of totalitarianism, similar to in George Orwell's 1984, which, funny enough, I read about a year ago, so it was very heavy in the back of my mind when I was reading this book. I found all these similarities. So how does it match up to your expectations of the genre? So I was expecting to read a book very similar to this when I decided to give A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes a go. Having gone into this book after the Hunger Games trilogy, I was expecting a slightly different world than what we found in the trilogy. I was not disappointed at all. So, as was pointed out to me from my partner, who is also quite a bookworm, each of Suzanne Collins' trilogy, like books in the trilogy of the Hunger Games, has 3 parts, and each part has 9 chapters, meaning that each book has 27 chapters in total. I didn't realise this. When I did, I was a bit shocked. I was like, oh, okay, that is pretty cool. And because the books were published through Scholastic, they're all roughly the same page length and size as well. This is because a lot of Scholastic books don't want to be too big because they're targeted towards younger readers, and if they're too big, they're too daunting, and younger readers may not want to read such big books. Because of this, some of the trilogy is seen as does feel a bit rushed. This prequel is also through Scholastic, I'm pretty sure. I did notice that Suzanne also kept the 3-part rule that she did for the original series. However, instead of having 9 chapters each section, she has 10. So this book has a total of 30 chapters in all. And it was quite good. You'll see I put some notes. I think some of the parts were a bit drawn out, longer than they may have needed to be. And then others were shoved together and it went really fast, but the overall story was really good, really enjoyable. So the summary for the book: ambition will fuel him, competition will drive him, but power has its price. It is the morning of the reaping that will kick off the 10th annual Hunger Games. In the capital, 18-year-old I can't say his name. Coriolanus Snow is preparing for his one shot at glory as a mentor in the Hunger Games. The once mighty house of Snow has fallen on hard times, its fate hanging in the slender chance that Coriolanus will be able to outcharm, outwit, and outmaneuver his fellow students to mentor the winning tribute. The odds are against him. He's been given the humiliating assignment of mentoring the female tribute from District 12, the lowest of the low. Their fates are now completely intertwined. Every chance Coriolanus makes could lead to favour or failure, triumph or ruin. Inside the arena, it will be a fight to the death. Outside the arena, Coriolanus starts to feel for his doomed tribute, and must weigh his need to follow the rules against his desire to survive, no matter what it takes. Straight away, you're like, ooh, okay, I get chills. I must know how the book ends. As you picked up, I have trouble saying his name. Even when I'm reading it in my head, I stumble across his name, and I say it a lot in this book. A lot. I did find myself getting drawn out every now and then because of myself tripping over his name. That it's not the case for everyone. My brain works that way. If I can't quite read it properly, I just sort of glance, I know what I'm reading, and I skip over the word. I still take it in, it's just my brain doesn't read it out loud like it would the rest of the text. I'm strange that way, yes I know, but that's how I read books. Some other people may be the same, we'll never know. So the analysis. Once again, I wrote quite a bit. I read this book over a few days. I actually was reading it at my breaks at work and stuff, so I didn't read it as quickly as if it was over a weekend, let's say. I also found that in the last third of the book, I was struggling to continue a little bit as it seemed to get a bit slow, and then all of a sudden it picked up and went super fast. So that's just, my take. So the plot and theme. I'm sorry, there may be a few spoilers here, so if you're hesitant, skip over this little bit. In the first part of the three-part book, the story begins on the eve of the 10th annual Hunger Games in the capital of Panem. We see life through the eyes of Coriolanus Snow, an 18-year-old academy student who will someday become the infamous President Snow. Coriolanus is desperate to hide the fact that in the last 10 years since the First Rebellion, or the Dark Days as they refer to it at this point in time, it is currently referred to, his family is struggling to make ends meet. As a special tribute to the 10th Hunger Games, and to try and draw the citizens of Panem into watching the games, 24 students from the academy are selected to mentor the 24 tributes. This hasn't happened before, as the first 10 Hunger Games, it's very different to the trilogy. People aren't forced to watch it. It isn't projected everywhere across the districts. They can choose if they want to watch it or not, and even people in the capital choose not to because it's bleak, it's sad, why would they want to watch that? So what they're trying to do is market it so that people in the capital want to watch it, want to be invested, and want to participate, and to remind the people in the districts, this is what happens if you rebel, and make it mandatory watching. So Coriolanus is charged with the District 12 girl called Lucy Gray Baird. I was reading it as Bard in my head. I'm pretty sure that is not correct, but yes. The singer in a performance group called the Covey. The events leading up to the games goes to show how different tributes were treated before the original trilogy. Over the course of a few days, almost half of the tributes die before they even reach the arena, along with a few of the mentors. Tributes are treated as nothing more than animals, left in a cage in the zoo, with no food or water. This is the first time they are not placed immediately in the arena in the course of the game so far. It mentions briefly that for the first 10 years they are shipped in cattle trains, put straight in the arena, which is always the same place, and set to fight to the death. This time they actually keep them for a few days as a spectacle because they have the new mentors. They want to show them off, get people to come see the new people from the districts. Creatures, I should say, from the districts. I don't even think of them as people. It's quite confronting, really. Part 2 begins with the tributes in the arena. Coriolanus must impress the rich people in the capital in order to receive sponsor gifts to keep Lucy Gray alive. Once again, this is his idea. He's the one who invented the sponsor gifts and being able to give the tributes anything in the arena and communicate. This is all him. In order to prevent some spoilers, I won't dwell too much on the tributes in this part of the book. The section is split 50-50 between watching the games and following Coriolanus away from the arena. We witness the undoing of Sejanus as he becomes more and more unsettled from the events he is forced to participate in. So Sejanus is another mentor. He is the same age as Coriolanus. He's in his class, and I'll go into more detail for him in a little bit. As a form of protest one night, Sejanus breaks his way into the arena, fully expecting to not come back out. The capital will not allow this, and from witnessing his closeness to Coriolanus, forces Corio to go into the arena to save him. The final part of the book shows the immediate 3 months that take place after the games, or the summer that takes place after the games. Coriolanus is forced to become a peacekeeper. He asks to be assigned to District 12 in order to be close to his newfound love, Lucy Gray. This soon becomes messy as Coriolanus is soon joined by Sejanus, who is determined to go against orders and assist the rebels. In order to keep each other safe, Corio and Lucy Gray decide to run away to the north and start a new life. However, things do not go to plan. I tried not to write too much because I didn't want to spoil too much, but it was hard. So, you'll have to read the book to know what happens. So, pacing, emotion, ending, and plot holes. The pacing of the story was well written. A few sections were a bit on the slow side, and the conclusion seemed to wrap up within one chapter. I remember feeling shocked and disturbed while reading. The overall feel that comes from realising that the capital has complete and total control is quite unsettling. The totalitarianistic ruling with little care for those deemed unimportant is portrayed amazingly by Suzanne Collins. The ending of the book works well as a segue into the trilogy presented 64 years later. It did not satisfy me, but was very informative and chilling in a way. And it doesn't say in the books, but it actually says if you read other reviews or do some research what actually happens in between this book and the trilogy, a bit more detail, which I found quite fascinating and I nerded out about as well. Okay, so the main characters I narrowed down to these 4. There are many more, but I didn't have the room and I didn't want to be talking for ages. So first off, we have the middle 2. We have Lucy Gray Baird. She is 16 years old. Female tribute from District 12, comes from a roaming group known as the Covey. Does not truly belong to any district. They say quite a lot that she shouldn't have been the tribute for District 12 because she's not originally from there. She is more capital than the actual tributes, so they use that quite a bit to try and get her out of the game and get her support. She becomes the capital sweetheart from performing songs, and she falls in love with Coriolanus. Coriolanus, also known throughout the book as Corio, he is 18 years old. He's on his final year at school. One of the first mentors in the Hunger Games. He is mentor to Lucy Gray from District 12. He served a brief stint as peacekeeper throughout the book. He tested successfully to become an officer but did not pursue this line of work. He goes to the university and studies advanced military strategy, becomes an apprentice game maker. His ideas made the Hunger Games of the future, so quite a lot of things, the Hunger Games, the arena, the sponsors, all of that originated from Snow. And he falls in love with Lucy Gray. Now, over to Tigress, the other female main character that I wrote down. She's 21 years old. She is a cousin of Coriolanus. She's actually more like a sibling. They live together and look after each other. She's employed under a famous fashion designer. Her income keeps the Snows afloat and acts as a confidant for Snow. We actually see her in Mockingjay Part 2 if you watch the movie. Tigress, she is the store owner that they run in to hide, and she looks like a tiger. That's her when she's older. It's quite amazing to put a face to the name. And then off to the other side we have Sejanus Plinth. So he's 18 years old, originally born in District 2. So he moved to the capital when he was 8. He doesn't feel like he should be in the capital. He doesn't feel like he belongs. He identifies as a District 2 person, and he's given quite a lot of hassle for it throughout his schooling. And he doesn't see the capital as home. He wants to go home, back to District 2, but he knows that they also won't accept him because they see him as sort of a traitor. So he's quite stuck, you see. He is assigned as the mentor to Marcus, who is from District 2. You see that his father, who is richer than God, has some say into this. And it is quite cruel because Marcus actually used to be in the same class as Sejanus when they were growing up. So it makes it a lot harder for both of them. He used to go to school with Marcus, close friends with Coriolanus. The whole book is from Corio's point of view, Snow's point of view. He doesn't exactly think of Sejanus as a friend. He just sort of puts up with him. But he's too good an actor for Sejanus to realise, and he thinks of Snow as his best friend. And you actually see how manipulative Snow is throughout the book. You are made to like him, but then when you look into his thoughts and his reasonings, sometimes you're like, that isn't right, that isn't a good person. And he becomes increasingly rebellious towards the capital, to the point of danger, pretty much. There are a few other minor characters, like the head game maker, the person who created the games. She is crazy. She is very dangerous. You see a lot of back and forth between her and Snow. Yeah, that's very interesting there. There's also the dean of the academy that they're currently attending, who has a vendetta against Snow. And it's interesting to see how that came about as well. So the recommendation. I love the Hunger Games when they rose to fame back when I was a teenager. I remember having finished the second book on a holiday and trying to portray how desperately I needed the recently released third book and final book to my mum and aunt. My aunt, who was reading the same books as I was, backed me up and talked my mum into getting the book for me. My mum was very hesitant, like, no, you don't need it. You don't need it. It's not important. We're on a holiday. You don't need this book right now. And I was desperate. I was like an addict. I needed the next book. I needed to know how it ended. Luckily, my aunt is very similar, and she backed me up. I cannot believe how long I waited before reading this prequel. I was waiting for the book format to go down from the trade size to B format, as I mentioned before, to match my copies. In the end, seeing the upcoming release of the movie adaptation gave me the push I needed to read the book anyway. I cannot recommend this book enough to other Suzanne Collins fans. The additional insight into the world of Panem was fascinating. I became engrossed in the book, and my need to rewatch and read the original trilogy grew the further into the story I commenced. I gave it a 3.5 stars out of 5. For those who enjoyed the Hunger Games and the world created by Suzanne Collins, you will really enjoy this prequel to the world of Panem and Snow. The only reason why it wasn't higher was because, like I put previously, some of the chapters seemed a bit drawn out. And then everything seemed to occur in the very last chapter. It was bam, 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 bam. It felt really rushed all of a sudden. They could have The last third could have been written a bit differently in my opinion, but I'm no writer, so. And yes, that is it. That's my review of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Thank you for watching.